You see my book that I wrote about the history of the Red Sox, and I actually wrote this book while I was still living in Cleveland, Ohio. I lived in Cleveland, Ohio my whole life until 3 years ago when I moved to New England. And people are like, what are you doing writing a book about the Red Sox when you lived in Cleveland, Ohio? You used to cover the Cleveland Indians as a sports writer. I said, well, I have to explain to what happened. 1967, I was 10 years old, and my dad used to take us on vacation, somewhere in the country, and he took us to Boston that year. And coincidentally, it was the Impossible Dream season with Carl Yastrzemski and the whole gang when they won the pennant that year. And he took me to Fenway Park, and I was delirious. I was so excited. I was such a big baseball fan, and I was so excited to be at Fenway Park because I was used to going to baseball games at a place in Cleveland called Municipal Stadium. It was on Lake Erie, and you had to walk forever to get there. And it was a big bowl, and it had no personality and no nuances. And 2,000 people they had 85,000 seats there, and 2,000 people would show up to baseball games, and it was a big drag. And and so here I was in Fenway Park, and there were people coming in. The Red Sox were starting to play better, and it was filling up the ballpark. And when I got into Fenway, there was another sensory delight for me because it had all these cool things. It had the green monster. I don't know if my Boston accent's very good. Green monster. And the pesky pole, and the way the stands jutted out towards center field, and the Sitco sign, and it was really a cool place to be. And after that game, my dad took the whole family to Cape Cod. And I was, I still remember it so distinctly. Even though I was 10 years old, I still remember everything about it. I told my father, I want to live in New England someday. Because it was this area of the country is calling my name. I love New England. I want to move here someday. And my dad looked at me like, you're 10 years old. What do you know? But it took me to age 66 to do it. But I finally got it done in 2023. I finally moved to New England. Anyway, a little bit about me. We'll get the program started. When I was in high school in Cleveland, I put 2 and 2 together, which I could do by the time I was in high school. I was smart. And I decided I was going to become a sports writer. My dad was a writer. My sister was a writer. I love sports, so what the heck, I'll become a sports writer. And I went to a school called Ohio University, not to be confused with Ohio State. This was Ohio University. And I covered baseball for the newspaper there. And I graduated from Ohio University after 16 years. No, it really wasn't. It was actually 4 years and 1 semester. I got my diploma, and I became a sports writer in Cleveland. I covered the Cleveland Indians, now they're called the Guardians. I covered the Cleveland Browns, and I quit the newspaper business in 2002 because the internet had come in, taken over. No one was getting new subscriptions to newspapers. I just quit, like a lot of people did. And ever since 2002, my basic job has been I sit up in my bed and I write books. That's my job, like the 4 you see there. I've actually written over 200 books now since 2006. And some of them are only like 10 words, so it's really no big deal. No, they're more than that. And then I come out and do presentations for wonderful people like you. I do about 30 to 35 presentations a month at senior centers and libraries and assisted livings and so forth. There was one exception. In 2009, I got hired by CBS. CBS Sports hired me to cover the Cleveland Browns. They sucked. Every year, they just sucked. 4 years I covered the Cleveland Browns, and their best record in those 4 seasons was 5 wins and 11 losses. That was their best record. While you folks were enjoying Tom Brady and the Patriots and the playoffs and the Super Bowl, maybe going to a Super Bowl parade, pity me, because I had to cover the Browns for 4 years, and they were just absolutely beyond awful every year. Anyway, I left CBS in 2015 because they wanted me to move to Jacksonville, Florida, where their headquarters was, and do fantasy sports and stuff. I don't know if you all know what fantasy football is, fantasy baseball. And I said, I have a family to raise in Cleveland. I can't just move to Jacksonville. And they said, sayonara. So that was the end of that. Anyways, ever since 2015, I just do presentations and write books. And I'm going to get this one started right now. And I want to talk about Red Sox Nation. They call it Red Sox Nation. And the idea is, a lot of people believe that Red Sox Nation was born in 1967, when my attendance at that baseball game inspired the Red Sox to win the pennant. But I realized when I was researching this book that actually Red Sox Nation was born when the Red Sox were born. Even before they were called the Red Sox, they were called the Boston Americans, and they were born in 1901. And there was a guy named Michael McGreevy. Michael McGreevy was a saloon owner in Boston at the Third Base Saloon. And he formed the very first baseball fan club ever, Major League Baseball fan club called the Royal Rooters. And the Royal Rooters were passionate Boston Americans fans, then Boston Red Sox when they became the Red Sox. And they used to travel with the team and heckle the other fans of the other teams and heckle the other players on the other teams and bet on the Red Sox. And Michael McGreevy, who formed this fan club, he was known as Nuff Said. That was his nickname, Nuff Said. Because whenever there was an argument about baseball or I guess anything in his bar, he would make his point, and then he would say, Nuff Said. And that was the end of the argument. Anyway, here's a little bit about the Royal Rooters and Nuff Said McGreevy.
The Royal Rooters appear to be a first. They would march up Ruggles Street to the new stadium, and they would have a marching band with them. McGreevy had his shillelagh to lead the procession.
Nuff Said was clearly an organizer, and he was the final authority.
They were trying to be obnoxious. They were trying to, drive people from New York and Pittsburgh crazy, and they did a really good job with it.
McGreevy's saloon looked like Cheers after a Victorian interior decorator had gotten a hold of it.
Our boys will beat you on the field, we'll beat you off the field and take your money home with us.
Gambling was big business.
You had John F. Kennedy's grandfather was a member of the Royal Rooters.
Just Grandpa's presence gave a special bit of panache to the Royal Rooters.
It was an extremely democratic organization, democratic in that allowed everyone to behave like a rowdy.
They sort of were the Johnny Appleseeds of this relation between the fans and sports.
These men were fine men, they had great personality.
They were very emotional. They went to Pittsburgh, they went by train to New York.
They were examples of second-generation Irish who really made Boston what it is today.
The Roxbury Rooters, they rallied around the fact that there was this fire, and that not only were they going to root for the baseball team, but they're rallying together to pull together the community after an extremely devastating fire.
Okay, the fire that he's referring to, by the way, caught hold when they were building Fenway Park in 1912. There was a fire in the grandstand, and it extended into the community. It was a really bad fire. Anyway, so a lot of people don't know this, but the Red Sox were the best team in baseball in the early days of the American League, which was formed in 1901. They were the best team in baseball. They won 5 World Series from 1903, which was the first World Series. They won that one with Cy Young on the mound, and then they won 4 more through 1918. And in 1919, the day after Christmas, Harry Frazee, the owner of the Red Sox, very famously sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees. So we'll talk about that. But they had a great team before that. They brought up, they purchased Babe Ruth in 1914, and they won 3 World Series with him on the mound. And we'll talk about Babe Ruth and the selling of Babe Ruth to the Yankees, which had a gigantic impact on both franchises in a little bit. But here is all about the early days of the Red Sox when they were really, really good.
Ban Johnson created the American League. He determined very early on that the team in Boston was going to be one of his flagship franchises. Boston had this aura that they were the team that was always going to win. One way or another, Boston was going to come out on top.
With great pitching and defense, Boston won 5 of the first 15 World Series, including 1903 with the immortal Cy Young on the mound. In 1912, the Sox christened Fenway Park with a second championship and won again in 1915, 1916, and 1918. The pitching star of that team was Babe Ruth, who the Sox had bought from an industrial league in Baltimore in 1914. Ruth was only 19 years old, but he won big right away.
He won 18 games. The next year, 1960 and 1917, he won 23 and 24 games. In the World Series in 1918, he pitched a shutout and then pitched 7 scoreless innings to extend his scoreless streak to 29 innings, which was the record for more than 40 years. He was a sensational pitcher, but his hitting began to take over, and he loved to hit. He loved the sense of hitting.
In 1919, the Babe led the American League with 29 home runs, which was more than all but 5 teams in baseball. Ruth was the Red Sox principal attraction, the team's biggest draw. But prior to the 1920 season, Boston owner Harry Frazee, a New York theater producer.
Now, trivia time. I want to do a trivia question first. By the way, did you like the way they play that villain music when they put Harry Frazee on the screen? Trivia question time. In 2002, a really stupid American League team got rid of David Big Papi Ortiz. They thought he couldn't hit lefties, and they put him on waivers and got rid of him and allowed the Red Sox to pick him up. It was one of the stupidest moves ever in American League history. What was the name of that team that got rid of Big Papi and allowed the Red Sox to pick him up?
Twins.
You got it, Minnesota Twins. Good job. Okay, well done. Okay, so let's talk about Babe Ruth. Babe Ruth arrived in 1914, like that video said, it was a great pitcher, a great left-handed pitcher, Hall of Fame level pitcher. But the Red Sox didn't know what to do with him, because by 1917 or so, it became apparent that Babe Ruth could revolutionize baseball with his power hitting, home runs. There was no such thing as a home run hitter. No such thing. It was the dead ball era, and players were told to swing down on the ball, get it through the infield, move the runners along. If you hit it in the air, it was just going to get caught. But Babe Ruth was so powerful that he could hit it over the outfielders' heads, over the fence, hit home runs. Nobody else was doing that. And the Red Sox didn't want to use him as a hitter because they thought it would ruin his pitching. So they didn't want to play him every day. Well, by 1918, the whole thing became really stupid. They were like, we have to play him every day. He's the biggest offensive force in baseball by far. We have to play him every day. So Babe Ruth, they started playing him every day, and Babe Ruth wanted his salary doubled from $10,000 a year to $20,000 a year. And by the way, the minimum salary for baseball players today is $785,000 a year. That's the minimum salary. But $20,000 back then was a lot. And Harry Frazee, the owner of the Red Sox, got mad about that. Also, the common belief is that Harry Frazee sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees because he wanted a fund to play on Broadway called No No Nanette. There is truth to the fact that he had a theater business on Broadway. But No No Nanette did not appear on Broadway until 1926, which is 7 years later. So there's a little bit of question about that motivation. I think the real reason that Babe Ruth was sold to the Yankees was that there were some quote-unquote moralistic people in Boston that pushed Harry Frazee to get rid of him. They said he's a bad influence on society. He's a womanizer. He's a gambler. He used to swear all the time. He used to visit brothels. He was like, get rid of this guy. He's a bad influence. Well, the bottom line is that Harry Frazee not only sold Babe Ruth to the Yankees, he sold 2 Hall of Fame pitchers, Herb Pennock and Wade Hoyt, to the Yankees. He sold another hitter named Duffy Lewis to the Yankees. He single-handedly launched the Yankee dynasty, the owner of the Red Sox. And the Red Sox, meanwhile, were just terrible for 15 years. They were the worst team in baseball after they got rid of Babe Ruth. They finished last almost every year. They lost over 100 games most of the time. They were just beyond terrible. And in the mid-30s, they sort of recovered. They purchased 2 players from the Philadelphia A's that were like having a fire sale, and they purchased Jimmy Fox, who's one of the great sluggers of all time, and Lefty Grove, a Hall of Fame pitcher, and they got respectable again. And then in 1939, they brought up a kid named Ted Williams, the greatest pure hitter who ever lived. Now, Ted Williams, in his rookie season, had 145 RBIs. Everyone know what an RBI is? Runs batted in? 145, which is crazy for a rookie. And in 1941, going into the last day of the season, Ted Williams was batting 400. No one had batted 400 since 1923, and his manager, Joe Cronin, came up to him and said, hey, I'll tell you what, Ted, why don't you sit out this doubleheader, meaningless doubleheader, we're out of the race, and you got your 400 batting average. Ted Williams said, I'm Ted Williams. I don't do it that way. I'm going to bat 400 from the first day of the season to the last. And he got 4 hits in the first game of the doubleheader and ended up batting 406. That was 85 years ago. Nobody has batted 400 ever since. And the way baseball is played now, and the way pitchers are throwing the ball, I don't think anyone's going to ever bat 400 again unless something drastic changes. Anyway, Ted Williams was like the first scientific hitter. His whole life revolved around being the greatest hitter of all time. That was his whole motivation in life. And he used to practice in front of a mirror all day long with his swing and with a yardstick or a bat, and he was just passionate about hitting. Here's a little bit more about the great Ted Williams. Okay, let's try that again. I think I better be careful with whatever wire I'm touching.
Overwhelmed was like being in the presence of a deity.
He was almost a godlike figure. He's a baseball god.
He really studied his game. He was a master at it.
He loved putting on a show.
To look at him was gorgeous. Oh, he was a beauty to watch.
He loved his swing. He had a beautiful swing. His swing was a work of art.
His bat being the brush and Fenway Park is the canvas.
What he said himself was that his only desire was to walk down the street and have people say, there goes the greatest hitter who ever lived.
He took that one aspect of baseball and perfected it.
Baseball holds out the possibility of perfection, and keep hitting, the game never ends. So it's out there.
He was so focused on what he wanted to do, and it was to the exclusion of everything else.
He was obsessed with hitting.
Everything about him is interesting in this gnarled, difficult way. I mean, he was that way himself. What's the matter with him? What you constantly ask about that? What's wrong with this guy? What a weirdo. What a great hitter.
Ted Williams only got to, enjoy the biggest stage one time because the Yankees kept winning the world, winning the pennant year after year. And so he only got to be in the World Series once, 1946, Ted Williams, and they played the St. Louis Cardinals. And the Cardinals did something in that series that has since been banned from baseball a couple years ago called the shift. And they put 3 infielders on the right side of the second base because Ted Williams used to pull the ball all the time over there. And Ted Williams couldn't handle it very well, and he only batted 200 in that World Series. And they lost to the Cardinals. If he had hit better, they might have won that World Series. But that doesn't take anything away from the greatness of Ted Williams, who most people agree is the greatest pure hitter who ever lived. Anyway, the next year, 1947, Jackie Robinson integrated baseball. He joined the Brooklyn Dodgers, became the first black player in baseball, Major League Baseball, and other teams started to integrate as well. But Tom Yawkey, the owner of the Red Sox, steadfastly refused to add any black ball players. He was a racist. He refused to add any black ball players, and the Red Sox became the last team to integrate. In fact, one of their managers in the 1950s said straight out, we're not going to add any N-words to this team. And he didn't say N-words. Anyway, so finally in 1959, the Red Sox put on a field a guy named Pumpsie Green, a black guy, and he didn't turn out to be very good. And really, by the early 1960s, the lack of impetus in trying to get integrated hurt the team. And they were pretty bad. They had another bad era in the early mid-60s. Anyway, before spring training in 1967, I was sitting at home watching a new game show called the Hollywood Squares. Remember that show? And Peter Marshall was the host of Hollywood Squares, and he sits next to his contestant and he says, what is your name and what do you do for a living? And the contestant said, my name is Dick Williams. I'm the manager of the Boston Red Sox. And I was excited. So I run into the kitchen where my mother was, and I said, hey, Mom, the manager of the Red Sox is on Hollywood Squares. And she said, who cares? But I cared. By the way, he was also on Password. He liked playing game shows. Anyway, so nobody knew it. In 1966, the Red Sox were awful. They finished 9th in the American League, and the Yankees finished last, by the way, which was unusual. But anyway, the Red Sox that year, though, embarked on the greatest pennant race in baseball history. I mean, it's not even debatable. Going into the last weekend of the season, 4 teams out of the 10 were still alive for the pennant. The White Sox, the Red Sox, the Twins, and the Tigers. And going into the last game of the season, the Twins, Tigers, and Red Sox were all tied for first place. It was crazy. And the Twins were playing the Red Sox at Fenway Park. And that was the year of Carl Yastrzemski. Carl Yastrzemski that year won the Triple Crown, which is when you hit the most home runs, most RBIs, and best batting average in the league. And that was not done again until 2012, when Miguel Cabrera of the Tigers did it. So it took another 45 years before that happened again. But anyway, Yastrzemski had this unbelievable year. They had a pitcher named Jim Lomborg who won the Cy Young Award that year as best pitcher, and he was going against the Twins. This is the moment in time where the Red Sox concluded their impossible dream and won the American League pennant.
And so, with one game to decide the pennant, Minnesota's ace Dean Chance was going against Boston's ace Jim Lomborg.
It might be a little kid's dream to be on the mound for the final game of the season, a game that you have to win to go on to the World Series.
Boston started out the game tight. The Twins scored 2 early runs, but in the 6th, Lomborg surprised everyone.
As I walked up to home plate, I took a glance down the third baseline where Cesar Tovar, I think, was playing. And he was playing back quite a bit. I mean, he just figures here's a pitcher coming up. And the thought just occurred to me that I can lay down a bunt and I can beat it out.
Good bunt. And he can't play it. A bunt single for Lomborg to lead off the 6th inning.
On the next 3 consecutive pitches, we got base hits.
And this is a base hit to center. Swinging away. Base hit to left. Lomborg being held at third base, and they're loaded up. Base hit to center. Lomborg scores. Adair will score. It's tied up. The Sox kept up their momentum. They took the lead on Ken Harrelson's bouncer to short, and then a wild pitch brought home Yastrzemski with an insurance run. The drama continued into the 9th. The lead was still 2 runs as all of New England prayed with every pitch.
Little soft pop-up. Petroselli will take it. He does. The ball game is over. The Red Sox win it.
Within seconds, we were all there together as teammates. And then seconds after that, the people came on the field. For some reason, it seemed like a good thing to do just to stay on the field and enjoy the moment, because it really, we had done it. But the more I stayed on the field, the more I realized that I didn't know any of these people that were surrounding me, and we were headed towards right field. And then all of a sudden it got scary because they were going to right field, and I wanted to go back to the clubhouse.
Once in the clubhouse, the Red Sox waited for the outcome of the 2nd game of the Tigers-Angels doubleheader. If the Tigers lost, the pennant would belong to Boston.
We were sit and listen to the radio, and it was just as tense listening to that radio as probably playing the game itself against the Twins.
Then as the game started to progress and outs were being made and more cheers, the crescendo of the whole thing built up.
I'll never forget it because Dick McAuliffe hit into a game-ending double play.
His first double play of the season. Game's over, and we're the champions.
Okay. Now you heard that crowd after the Red Sox clinched that victory, the screaming and cheering and delirium of the crowd. That's the kind of audience reaction that I usually get when I do my presentations.
Except when you come in.
Yeah, but yeah, well, you guys are a little more laid back, so I understand. That's okay. Let me give you another trivia question. In 1995, the Red Sox had a very burly, big dude, first baseman who had a lot of home runs, really great ball player. He won Most Valuable Player in the American League in 1995. What was his name? Anybody know? I'll give you a hint. What were the names of the Three Stooges? What was the first one you said? There's your hint. Mo Vaughn. There you go. Okay. All right. Now, the Red Sox had first of all, in 1967, one of the things that inspired the Red Sox was they had a wonderful young player who was headed for the Hall of Fame named Tony Conigliaro. And he had won, at age 20, he had already hit more homers than anyone in the American League that year. He had won the home run champion. And he had everything. He had a record out. He had this record. He was dating Mamie Van Doren. He was like a really good-looking guy. He had like everything going in life. And on August 18th of that year, 1967, he stepped to the plate against Jack Hamilton of the Angels, who hit him in the eye with a fastball. He was never the same again as a player or a person. He came back. He missed the entire 68 season. Came back in 69, had a good year, but his eyesight started to deteriorate, and he had to retire in 75, and he ended up passing away at age 44. Because, I would assume partly because of that, what happened to him. Really sad. Anyway, so the Red Sox had a good team for many years after that, but not great. They were just kind of the same, better than average, like every year, until 1975. And in 1975, they put on the field the greatest rookie tandem in baseball history, I believe. Fred Lynn, who won not only Rookie of the Year that year, but Most Valuable Player in the American League, which is rare for a rookie, and Jim Rice. And a lot of people thought Jim Rice was going to be better than Fred Lynn. And Fred Lynn had a really good career. But Jim Rice was a Hall of Famer. He was even better than Fred Lynn. I mean, they were just two unbelievable rookies. And a lot of people, experts in baseball, believe that 1975 was the greatest year in baseball history. Because, first of all, baseball was still the national pastime in 1975. It was still the most popular sport in America. Soon later, not many years later, the NFL, pro football, would take over as the most popular sport, and it's clearly more popular than baseball is now. But back then, it was still the national pastime. And not only that, but there was this incredible World Series that year between the Boston Red Sox and the Big Red Machine, the Cincinnati Reds, who had Pete Rose and Johnny Bench and Joe Morgan and George Foster, and they were absolutely loaded. They had one of the greatest offensive machines in baseball history, and they had a great World Series. This is one of the most famous moments in baseball history I'm going to show you right now. This was Game 6 of the World Series. The Red Sox are down 3-2. They need to win to survive. And it went extra innings, and their great catcher, Carlton Fisk, stepped to the plate, and he did this, and then he did this really famous air traffic controller bit, as you will see in a minute.
There it goes, a long drive. If it stays fair, home run. Seventh game in this 1975 World Series. Carlton Fisk becomes the first player in the series to hit one over the wall into the net. Red Sox. A lot of body English for Carlton Fisk. Watch it. How many steps does he take? One. He waits to see it. Get over. Get over. He knew it. There it is. I tell you, one of the more dramatic home runs in World Series history. And there is Tom Yawkey to the left, Haywood Sullivan.
Okay, now, it's interesting how that happened because there were 5 camera people, but the network brought 5 camera people to that game. And 4 of them were trained on the home run itself. But one lone camera person had the camera trained on Carlton Fisk doing his air traffic controller thing, trying to will the ball fair. And, I don't know how it works exactly. He called to the truck or the booth or whatever, and he said, you got to see the shot that I got. You got to see the shot that I got. So it took a few minutes for them to show this thing here. And when you watch a baseball documentary, like the history of baseball, they always show that moment in time because it's one of the most famous moments in baseball history. Unfortunately, the Red Sox lost game 7, but it was just an unbelievable moment. Now, you might want to cover your eyes for this one. This is such a famous moment in baseball history, though, and I have to show it. This was the opposite situation. 1986, the Red Sox are up 3-2. They're on the road this time at Shea Stadium, and they need one more win to win the World Series and break what they call the curse of the Bambino. They hadn't won a World Series since 1918. And they scored 2 runs in extra innings. And they have a young pitcher named Calvin Schiraldi, and he's dealing, and he got the first 2 guys out. And he gets 2 strikes on the next batter. He's 1 strike away from winning the World Series. Single, scores 1 run. John McNamara brings in Bob Stanley, the veteran relief pitcher, and this is what happened from there.
And it's going to go to the backstop. Here comes Mitchell to score the tying run, and Ray Knight is at second base. Is at second base with 2 out, 3-2 to Mookie Wilson. Little roller up along first, behind the bag, it gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Okay, I think we've seen enough of that one. Now, 3 things I want to bring up about that because it's such a huge moment in baseball history. 1, Mookie Wilson, who hit that little dribbler under the legs of Buckner, he has said over and over again, and I agree with him, that he would have beaten that out anyway. They wouldn't have made that last out. Now, the winning run wouldn't have scored, but he thinks he would have beaten it out because he's one of the fastest guys in baseball. It was a slow dribbler. Buckner was playing pretty far behind the bag. The pitcher still had to come over to cover the bag. I think he might have beaten that out. I think he's right. Number 2, Bill Buckner was a lousy defensive first baseman. He always was. Also, he was getting old. He had bad knees. The idea was that they needed to take him out of the game when they got the lead for a defensive replacement when they got the lead. John McNamara, the manager of the Red Sox, wanted Bill Buckner on the field to celebrate on the field when they won the World Series. So instead of taking him out, he left him in there. If you're winning by 8 runs, you could do something like that, but only 2-1 lead, it was really stupid. Also, Game 7, after they lost that game, they had Game 7, and the Red Sox were winning 3-0 in that game. And they started to falter, and John McNamara made the mistake of putting Calvin Schiraldi, that pitcher that blew the Game 6, into that game. Calvin Schiraldi was only 23 years old, and he had blamed himself for blowing Game 6, and which he did. And he was in no physical or no mental or emotional condition to pitch Game 7, But he went in there and he got his butt kicked, and the Mets won that game going away, and the Red Sox blew their chance with 1 out to go, blew their chance to win that World Series. Anyway, let me give you another trivia question. What was the kind of unflattering nickname for Carlton Fisk? Pudge, yes. Pudge Fisk. Okay, good job. All right. Now, what I'm going to show you next is the pitcher that I think was the most talented pitcher the Red Sox have ever had. And I know all about Cy Young. I know all about Roger Clemens. I know all about Chris Sale. But Pedro Martinez, I think, was the most talented pitcher the Red Sox have ever had. What makes a great pitcher? Is it being able to, what's that?
He wins the game.
He wins the game, right, right. Well, yeah, but hitting helps you win the game, too. What makes a great pitcher?
Strikes.
Well, yes. Throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour, that helps.
But getting people out, whether you do it by a strike or whether you make them hit.
Well, yes, that too, but we'll talk about that. Throwing 95 to 100 miles an hour helps. Great control, being able to hit the catcher's mitt, like a dime in the catcher's mitt, also helps. But the biggest thing that a pitcher could have, the greatest thing a pitcher could have, is late movement on your pitches. When a pitcher can throw the ball to home plate and it dives, or it cuts, or it rises, or it moves, the hitter can't square it up. And that's what Pedro Martinez had. He had unbelievable movement on his pitches, especially like his breaking balls, his changeup, it just moved like crazy, and hitters couldn't square. Pedro Martinez pitched during the steroid era, when hitters were, all juiced up and hitting all those home runs. Pedro Martinez, 1 year during the steroid era, had an earned run average 1 point lower than anybody else in baseball, which is crazy. Like, if you're a statistical-minded person, that's absolutely nuts that he had an ERA 1 point lower than anybody else. And anyway, I'm going to show you this little montage of Pedro Martinez pitches. Watch how they move as they approach home plate, especially his change-up and breaking balls. Another thing is that Pedro Martinez always pitched angry. He had incredible intensity. By the way, you saw that when every time he got a strikeout, they put another K up there, right? I was doing this program several months ago, and this woman who didn't understand baseball, obviously, got up and said, "What are you doing promoting the KKK in your program?" And I had to tell her, no, K's for strikeouts, I don't even know what she was doing at my program if she didn't understand that. Anyway, let me give you another trivia question. What is the name of the current player in Major League Baseball? Not Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts was another guy that a lot of people were angry that the Red Sox didn't keep him. But a shortstop, he plays for the San Diego Padres now. He was a real good hitter at Fenway Park, good hitter for the Red Sox. He's kind of mediocre now, but he plays for the Padres. He had a lot of good years for the Red Sox. What was his name? He's still active, playing for the Padres.
What position did he play?
Shortstop. Anybody know? His name is Xander Bogaerts. Xander Bogaerts. Okay. Now, let's get to the good stuff. I had a friend, which is not the amazing part of the story, that I actually had a friend in Cleveland. And he said after the Red Sox broke the curse, beat the Yankees in the ALCS to go to the World Series in 2004, and he said, wouldn't it have been special if the Red Sox had clinched that series against the Yankees at Fenway Park? And I said, no. It's so much more appropriate that they beat them at Yankee Stadium. The Yankees had tortured the Red Sox over the years. In 1978 with a Bucky Dent home run, 2003 with an Aaron Boone home run. I mean, the Yankees had tortured the Red Sox over the years. And here they were celebrating at Yankee Stadium with the Yankees in the dugout, unbelieving that they blew a 3-0 series lead. The Yankee fans were crying in the stands. They couldn't play New York, New York, which is the song they play after they win games. And here they are, the Red Sox celebrating at Yankee Stadium. I thought that was sweet revenge. I thought it was just really appropriate. You all remember what happened. The Red Sox are down 3-0 in that series. No team had ever blown a 3-0 series lead in the playoffs, ever. And Game 4, the Red Sox are losing that one too. They're about to be eliminated. And it's the 9th inning. They're down by 1 run, and they had a guy on first base named Dave Roberts, who is now the manager of the Los Angeles Dodgers, and he had the guts of a burglar. He stole second base. If he had gotten thrown out, that might have been, they probably would have lost that game. But he got in there, just got in there. He scores the winning run, tying run, and the great big poppy David Ortiz, the greatest clutch hitter in Red Sox history, one of the greatest clutch hitters of all time, stepped to the plate in extra innings, and this is what Big Poppy did.
Ortiz into deep right field. Back is Sheffield. We'll see you later tonight. Two-minute game and worth every second of it for the Boston Red Sox. 4 huge outs picked up by Leskanic. A leadoff hit by Ramirez, and David Ortiz sends everybody home just over 5 hours after it began.
The Yankees had been pitching him inside all night. He finally connected. A guy who won the division series against the Anaheim Angels wins this game here tonight.
He took that one the opposite way over the Green Monster, and this one, he pulled to right. And then...
Okay. Now, I hate to say this, they didn't even need to play the World Series in 2004. I mean, of course they had to play the World Series. Everybody knew the Red Sox were going to win that World Series. After they won 4 straight from the Yankees, everybody knew they were going to win that World Series, and they did. They swept. They didn't lose another game. They won 4 straight against St. Louis. And today, the Red Sox are the only team in Major League Baseball to win 4 World Series in the 21st century. And I'm going to show you right now the moment in time where they won each one of those 4 World Series. Here's 2004.
Red Sox fans have longed to hear it. The Boston Red Sox are world champions.
– 2007.
first series over, and the Red Sox are world champs again. And so the Boston Red Sox, as they did in 2004, celebrate a world championship on the road. They did it in St. Louis then, they do it in Denver, Colorado tonight.
2013.
The DH is ready to celebrate. And so are these fans. It hasn't happened at Fenway Park for 95 years. The Red Sox are world champions. Red Sox win the World Series.
2018.
5-1 the final tonight. And the best team in baseball wins it all in 2018.
The Red Sox have won the World Championship. The Boston Red Sox beat the Los Angeles Dodgers 5-1. They win the World Series 4-1. And the Red Sox become the first team in the 21st century with 4 World Championships. Can you believe it?
Okay, last trivia question. What was the name of the Cuban pitcher from the early to mid-70s that the Red Sox had, who used to smoke big cigars and turn his back to home plate during his windup? He used to go like this and pitch. He used to turn his back to home plate on his windup. Cuban pitcher, great pitcher in the 70s. A lot of people think he should be in the Hall of Fame. You got it. El Tiante, Louis Tiant. All right, well done. Okay, so I want to end this program how it began, talking about Red Sox Nation. Red Sox Nation is not Boston. It's not even New England. It's not even the United States. There's fans, the Red Sox fans. Red Sox Nation is the whole world. There's Red Sox fans everywhere. And I'm going to prove it to you right here. This is an interesting video. This is Game 4 of the 2018 World Series. They had a player named Steve Pearce who hit a 3-run double, a double with the bases loaded, that pretty much clinched Game 4 and really kind of ended that World Series. The Red Sox won Game 5 as well, and it was over. This is in L.A. This is Dodger Stadium in L.A. 3,000 miles away from Boston. Listen to the crowd when Steve Pearce hits this 3-run double. It sounds like it's at Fenway Park. That's how much cheering there is for the Red Sox in L.A. There had to be, based on that cheering, there had to be at least 20,000 Red Sox fans there. It's crazy. Here is that moment. Listen closely to the crowd when Steve Pearce does this.
Gap in right center field. This ball is down into the wall. It will empty the bases. Steve Pearce will ignite. 8-4 Boston in the ninth. Well, in the 8th against Jansen, he has a homer to tie the game, and this right here, best piece of hitting. Didn't try to do too much, it splits the gap, and right there you can sense. Thought everyone might come out of the dugout for the Red Sox breaking this game open.
We can talk about baseball, we can talk about horseradish, cucumbers, talk about anything you want. Anyone have any questions or comments for me? And don't worry that the Red Sox are 1-5 right now. So there's 156 more games to go. They have a really good rotation, pretty good hitting. They'll be okay. They just played in a really tough division. They don't want to fall too far behind the Yankees, or the Blue Jays, or the Orioles.
So weren't they? When were they? It was the Braves. Weren't the Braves?
The Braves were not the Red Sox. The Braves were a National League team. But the Braves left for Milwaukee to become the Milwaukee Braves in 1953, I think it was, and because they weren't drawing very well. But that was they had Boston had two teams. There was the Braves and the Red Sox. One was the American League of Red Sox, and the Braves were in the National League. Anybody else? Questions, comments?
I just have a comment where you talk about it being Red Sox Nation everywhere. My daughter was in LA, lived in LA for a long time, and I sent her a green Red Sox hat.
Oh yeah, those green ones, yeah. I've
so
seen those.
she's wearing it, and some guy comes up to her and said, "I'll give you $100 for that hat." Wow.
Really?
Yeah. So she gave me the green hat. She said, "Mom, I made $100 in the hat." And she said, "Oh." She said, "The hat didn't cost anything because I now we got $100." And I said, "But I paid for it." But yeah, somebody gave me $100 for that hat.
Sure. Probably a Red Sox fan, I'm sure.
I'm sure it was.
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody remembered that shot of somebody running for the ball, goes overboard, and there's a guy standing there like this, security guard. Do you remember when that happened?
Yes, he went over.
It was the cop.
The cop that was in
Yeah.
the-
Do you remember the guy?
Yes.
Somebody going for trying to catch
player?
the ball, and he goes over.
The player went over?
No.
No,
Yeah.
the player went over and his legs were in the air.
Yeah.
But the cop
It
was
was
doing
awesome.
this too.
I know.
No, I don't. I don't remember that. How long ago was that?
Uh-oh.
Who was the player? Who was the
That's
outfielder?
what I'm trying to
It
figure
was an
out.
outfielder.
Big Poppy hit it.
What is it?
Oh, Big Poppy hit it.
He hit it into the,
Oh, so it was the other
he hit it
team.
into the bullpen.
Oh, okay.
And the guy went over the fence for it, his legs were sticking up in the air.
Did he catch it?
And there's a cop going like this
Yeah,
next
it's
to the
just
guy
a
with the
great
legs.
shot.
No, they didn't catch it.
He didn't catch it?
It was a home run. It was a big home run. It wasn't
Yes.
the game.
Yeah. Anybody else? Questions, comments? Okay, I'll tell you what. One other thing before I let you go, and I hope you don't mind your indulgence a little bit here. With the holidays less than 9 months away, I was a sports writer for 23 years, covered Major League Baseball for 17, and I wrote the only books that detail the entire histories of Major League Baseball teams, including the Red Sox. I also wrote books I have on the history of the Yankees and the Mets, but I don't want tomatoes and eggs thrown at me, so I don't show those. But if you have any Yankees or Mets fans in your life, I also have those. But anyway, these books are between 22 and 30 chapters of the greatest and most interesting teams and players and events and moments and games, in franchise history going back to 1901 all the way to today. And I won more than 45 awards as a sports writer. I had to pay the judges, but technically the awards are still mine. No, I only tell you about my awards to let you know I write in a very fun, entertaining style, and I autograph and I personalize all my books for free. So if you have any Red Sox fans in your life, or like yourselves or anyone else, they make great gifts. And this book just came out in 2025. I'm real proud of this book. I was on WBZ Radio in Boston talking about this. But anyway, I'm the only author ever to rank the 50 greatest athletes in Boston sports history, based on athleticism, impact, and achievement. And I'll give you a little hint. Tom Brady's only number 2. Because the athlete I picked for number 1, in terms of athleticism, impact, and achievement, nailed all of those. Like, I had no qualms about picking this guy number 1.
It wasn't Babe Ruth, was it?
No, because Babe Ruth played most of his career with the Yankees.
Ted Williams.
Ted Williams is number 4. No, it was a Boston Celtic. Anyway, so if you have any Boston sports fans in your life, anyone that is into Boston sports beyond the Red Sox, it makes a great gift too. I am a pop culture historian as well as a sports guy, and I'm the only author ever to actually rank the 100 greatest cartoon characters of all time, based on different criteria that I use to rank them. And I will let you folks guess who my co-author and I ranked number one. Don't look on the cover, he's not there. It was an easy choice, the greatest cartoon character, animated cartoon character of all time.
Mickey Mouse.
You said it.
Yeah.
Bugs Bunny.
Bugs Bunny.
Yeah. I told my co-author Bugs Bunny's number one, let's move on. And he agreed with that. Snoopy's number 6, by the way, he said Snoopy. Now, people think this is a book for children. It is not. It's a book for all ages because there's 100 years of cartoon characters in this book, from Popeye all the way to today. Evil characters, funny characters, superheroes, why we ranked them where we did, the total history of the character, these images, the trivia, all these images that go back to the 1920s. It's really fun. There's a guy named Tom Kenny. Tom Kenny is the voice of the most popular character of the 21st century. Like him or not. SpongeBob SquarePants. And he wrote the foreword to this book. And my co-author, Joe Wost, is the cartoonist for the Charles Schulz Museum. Charles Schulz, of course, created the Peanuts characters. So if you have anyone in your life that likes pop culture, coffee table books, cartoons, whatever it might be, makes a great gift. And this one is, if you know of anyone that likes hockey and wants to learn more about hockey, this is called the Hockey Book of Why, and Who, What, When, Where, and How. And it's all about, it's just an all-encompassing hockey knowledge book. Really fun stuff, too. And I'll be here for another few minutes if you want to take a look at my books.